Hey, I'm Brendan with Bourbon on a Budget, here to talk to you today about a bourbon that you should always pick up whenever you see it in the wild, with the caveat that it's not super marked up, and two, you're probably getting it as a gift for someone else. That bourbon, Eagle Rare. I think that's how eagles sound. So assuming if you're watching this that you have a pretty good idea of baseline of bourbons, and if not, let me introduce Eagle Rare to you. It is from the Buffalo Trace Distillery. It is basically an amped up version of the Buffalo Trace bourbon, just a standard good bourbon Buffalo Traces. Eagle Rare is 10 years old, so it's going to be a little bit older than the 7 to 8 year blend that Buffalo Trace is. And its MSRP is going to be like $27 to $30, I guess, depending on where you can find it. However, because it's Buffalo Trace, it gets marked up all the time, often going to be $45 to $50 in stores. So the question is, when do we buy Eagle Rare? When should you consider purchasing it? Is it a bottle that you should buy multiple of? Is it a bottle that you should buy multiple of? It's hard for me to say. Is it a bottle that you should buy multiple of at any given time? I think it's going to depend on a few things. Number one, how far along are you in your whiskey journey? If you only have like 3 or 4 bottles in your bourbon collection, or even like say 6, 7, if you're sub 10 basically, and you're still exploring different bottles and you're not sure entirely what you like, then yeah, if you see Eagle Rare at $40, buy it for yourself, because it's reasonable at that price. I think it's about what it should be. Like at $25 to $30, if you see this at a Costco or a BJ's or a wholesale place like that, and you see it at like $26, buy it right away, because it's an amazing value. Now, if you're seeing it at $50 to $60, that's where I'm getting a little hesitant on it, because I think you could find much better values for your collection. We've talked about this before with that bell curve, 1910, 1920, Wild Turkey Rare Breed. There's a lot of different, more amped up, richer, more robust, interesting, unique bourbons that I think you can get at a similar, if not just a little bit more higher price point, but you know where your money's going. That's not to discourage Eagle Rare. This is a really good bottle. Even just the bottle design itself, it's classic, and it's a classic bourbon. It's 90 proof, so if you're newer into bourbon and you're still getting into like anything over 80 proof, then this might be a really good transition for you. This is one of my favorites about 4 or 5 years ago when I started getting into bourbon. I love this bottle, and I have a level of nostalgia for it where I have a hard time not having it in the collection, even though it's something I don't really turn to a ton. Where I think you should really consider buying multiple bottles at a time, or at least always having an unopened one like I do in your collection, is when you know you have multiple friends who like bourbon. And the reason why I think this is such a good gift idea for people is 2 or 3-fold. Number one, it is going to be somewhat of a status symbol. It's a name that if you're fairly new into bourbon, I think you're going to have a recognition of. If you're super into bourbon like myself, TJ, and Ben are, and you've been collecting it for years, you're going to have a baseline appreciation for it. You know it's good quality stuff. It's going to drink better than a lot of 90 proofers, to be totally honest with you guys, because it's 10 years old. It has a little bit more complexity and layers to it. It's not just straight cherry, brown sugar, which all great notes, but more standard bourbon stuff. This has a little bit more of an herbally feel to it. You get some lemon zest with it. I do enjoy Eagle Rare a lot. But because it is proofed at 90, and this is the second reason why I think you should buy it for people as gifts, it's accessible. It's not something that's going to require a really sophisticated palate to enjoy. For example, I was up in upstate New York over the summer visiting my in-laws, and I saw a half bottle of Eagle Rare at like $25. I didn't want to get a whole bottle of anything. I just wanted to have something for the week and something I would enjoy and something to maybe share with them if they were interested in it. They're not huge bourbon fans. I got it. My mother-in-law, she's nosing it. She's trying to get flavors and notes out of it. And finally she goes, cherry! I can get cherry! That was the first thing she got out of it without me even saying it. And that is a note in Eagle Rare that is very pronounced, in addition to some of the other more nuanced ones I mentioned earlier. But the fact that she was able to pick that up, I think, speaks to the value of this bottle, right? That this is good stuff, and it's going to be a good representation of what a good bourbon can be. So because it is accessible, I think you can get this as a gift for a relatively newbie into bourbon, or if you were to get it for someone who's really into it, it's going to be appreciated. Like if someone gets me a bottle of Eagle Rare, yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. I may not be going out of my way to go buy a bottle, but hell yeah, I'll enjoy a bottle if you buy it for me and we can crack it open, and I will be glad to drink it. I will never turn down a pour of Eagle Rare. I'll put it that way. Number 3, and the third reason why I think this is a great gift and a bottle to consider always buying when you see it in the wild, is its price. It is priced relatively fairly. Again, the MSRP on this is an extraordinary value. $30, it's going to be hard to find a better bottle at $30 than this. However, because it gets marked up a ton because it's a Buffalo Trace product, it's going to again be $35, $40. That's a good price point to pay for a gift bottle of bourbon, I think. Typically, you're not going to be getting someone unless you know they're a super big enthusiast and that's like a best friend or a spouse, someone of that magnitude. You're not going to be spending more than $50 or $60 on a present. So you can knock out your entire budget for a bottle of bourbon if that's what you choose to get someone for a gift in this price range. Again, you'll hit the other criteria as well as it being a bourbon that is appreciated, accessible, recognizable. So in conclusion, when do you buy Eagle Rare? Whenever you see it below $50, I think is fair if you're going to stock up on getting it as a gift bourbon to give out to people. For yourself and your own collection, the first time you see it out there, if you don't have it in your collection, sure, go ahead, splurge on it, $45, $50, feel okay with it. Maybe just know that's probably the only time you're going to spend that much on it. Other than that, if you see it at $30, yes, get it for your collection, but it's not one that, at this point, looking behind me, this is like a third of my collection. You don't need to have it on hand all the time. It is a really strong, solid bourbon, not revelatory, great for someone who's kind of going in from the beginner level to the mid-tier level of experience drinking bourbon. And as I said many a time on this show, it is a perfect gift bourbon. All right, thanks for watching. Again, I'm Brendan with Bourbon on a Budget. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel here. We've had a lot of growth recently. Really appreciate it. We'll be back with another video later this week.